in the bantamweight division now. We got Corey Sandhagen coming in at minus 150. He goes up against Mario Bautista, who comes in at plus 130. Now, this is a rematch of a fight that took place back in January of 2019, which happened to be Mario Bautista's UFC debut. Now, before we talk about that fight, let's talk about the backgrounds of both these guys first. With Sandhagen, he is coming off of a title fight loss at the hands of Merab Dvalishvili. He tried finding success in that fight. He nearly got finished in the second round after Merab hurt him very badly, but it just showed that Merab's style is just very hard Sandhagen to deal with. Sandhagen is always going to be one of the better bantamweights on the roster, right? This guy fights any and everybody. He's fought the best of them. He's fought the worst of them. More often than not, he ends up coming out on top. His losses have only come against guys who are either former or eventual champions, or guys that have competed for the title. So it's really, goes to show how high level of a fighter that he is. He has a very unorthodox striking game, unorthodox movement that kind of helps fuel that. Decent kicking game, good knees, good elbows. He has a slick submission game as well. He can go out there and out wrestle guys depending on the stylistic clash that he has. We saw that on full display over 25 minutes when he went up against Rob Font. He's skilled, very well-rounded. His gas tank is obviously another big positive in his game, that he can go 25 minutes and he can eat big damage, just as we saw in the Dvalishvili fight and the Nurmagomedov fight, and still find success in certain spots. But his inability to find finishes, the lack of power that he has in certain spots, that's always going to be a bit of an issue for him. So, I think that the lack of threat that he has there makes it harder to score rounds for him, especially if he can't really dominate certain rounds and certain spots. I wonder at what point he starts to slow down. He just fought for a title, which is usually the pinnacle of a fighter's career, but you got to wonder at a certain point where he starts to realize, okay, I'm not championship material, where his motivation is going to start to lie. Now, this weekend, he goes up against Mario Bautista, who was able to bounce back from that loss to Umar Nurmagomedov by absolutely demolishing and submitting Vinicius Oliveira earlier this year. Now, Bautista is a guy that was quite popular during his initial run with the UFC. Even after he got knocked out by Trevin Jones, he was able to put together a 6-fight winning streak that led him to the biggest fight of his career when he took on Jose Aldo. But that was the fight that really had the crowd turn on Bautista. That fight, he took a huge grapple-heavy approach, filled on every single one of his takedowns. I believe he went 0 of 10, but he accrued a ton of control time, pushing Aldo against the cage and scraping that victory out by split decision. Again, it was a very boring approach, and he lost a lot of fans that night, but that didn't stop him from going out there and spoiling the UFC debut of Patchy Mix in his next matchup. Bautista clearly had to show to the UFC that he was going to be a little bit more entertaining if he wanted to earn himself a title shot. So, it seemed like the UFC still questioned him enough to throw him in there with Umar Nurmagomedov, who we know is probably a very bad matchup for almost anybody in the division outside of Merab Dvalishvili. So we saw Bautista really struggle in that matchup. I think he hurt Nurmagomedov, if I remember correctly, in the second round of that fight, but Nurmi managed to bounce back pretty quickly. I think he even landed a takedown pretty quickly after getting rocked. But I thought we saw a very free version of Bautista the last time around against Oliveira that allowed him to, stalk Oliveira, land some big shots, mix in the grappling, out-scramble Oliveira, showcase some very slick reversals as well, and just showcase the developments and improvements that he's made throughout his run with the UFC. At his best, he is a nasty Muay Thai specialist with good knees, elbows, good pressure. He usually showcases good volume as well. His grappling is usually top-notch. He has a slick submission game as well, obviously, as we saw in the Vinicius Oliveira fight, but he loves that front choke series as well. He does a good job in terms of taking the back of his opponents and trying to find submissions there. But I really believe what's improved a lot for him is just building into his body, man. Like, he's clearly put on a lot more muscle than, 7 years ago. He's gotten more confident. He's gotten better all around. And the level of experience he's managed to accrue in this time has been very beneficial for him too. No better way to test how much better you've gotten than to go up against a guy that handed you your defeat in your UFC debut. And that's the opportunity that Bautista gets this weekend as he takes on Corey Sandhagen. Now, going into this, I really expected to just be on the Sandhagen side. I thought, his style is always just so awkward and difficult to deal with for a lot of guys. But I believe in the improvements that Bautista has made and his ability to go out there and put together a good enough game plan to potentially cause Sandhagen some trouble. Now, the first fight Sandhagen was mainly walking down Bautista the entire time. Bautista was throwing shots back and getting some respect of Sandhagen until Sandhagen eventually landed a flying knee to drop Bautista. Bautista eventually worked back to his feet and got to a clinch position and landed a few takedowns. Eventually, Sandhagen was able to create a few scrambles, and that allowed him to latch onto the armbar that forced Mario Bautista to tap. It wasn't a bad look for Bautista, who's coming into the promotion with a 6-0 record and 5 stoppages, while Sandhagen was 9-1 and going into his 3rd UFC fight. But again, this weekend we will really see the improvements and possible decline of Sandhagen. I'm not saying for sure Sandhagen is going to show a decline in his game, but I think Bautista has made up enough ground here, with his physicality, with his defensive grappling improvements, with his nastiness in the striking realm, but also his ability to mix it up in the clinch and really muzzle Sandhagen up against the fence. It wouldn't be surprising if Bautista makes this look ugly again, similar to the Aldo fight, just so he can get this win over Sandhagen. So, excuse me. I'm going to go Bautista. I'm going to go Bautista by decision. I don't mind the slight plus money on him in this spot. I just think stylistically speaking, Bautista can make this difficult for Sandhagen, leading to Bautista winning this fight on the scorecards.